Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Tammy Dorr, President and CEO of the Downtown Denver Partnership and co-chair of Denver Startup Week. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of Denver Startup Week. DSW has been the catalyst for lots of change over the past decade. And this week, we're coming together to celebrate the past and dream big for the future. We are able to bring Denver Startup Week to this community thanks to our 2021 sponsors. Thank you to our HQ and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors whose leadership makes this week come to life. Capital One Cafe, Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork. And our track sponsors who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible, our founder track sponsor, Kickstart, growth track sponsor, Friday Health Plans, developer track sponsor, Quizlet, product track sponsor, Palantir, our designer track sponsor, Battery 621, and the Public Works, people track sponsor, Exactly, and spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement to the week. Thank you to B-Side Fund, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, J.P. Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pi Insurance, Promontory Mortgage, PATH, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors, all listed on the screen. Please say thank you to these companies as you enjoy our hybrid Denver Startup Week. And don't forget, use the hashtag DenStartupWeek to share your experiences and moments of inspiration on social media. Have a great week.
The Public Works is a Denver, Colorado-based design, fabrication, and multimedia marketing firm that allows your company to craft an authentic presence to your target audience. For the past 15 years, the Public Works media team has been telling stories with words, pictures, and films. Our unique approach to brand storytelling allows us to get strong reactions and results from our content. We work in experienced and nimble teams with our crew of producers, directors, and cinematographers that all have first-hand experience and international presence. We are fortunate to have amazing clients that allow us to get wherever we need to go with the right tools for the highest production value. Lots of people can take a pretty picture. Just look at Instagram. While we believe our images speak for themselves, what really sets us apart is our decades of experience, our network, and our ability to make shit happen when it counts. We love bringing unexpected partners together to create added value for everyone, and most of all, we love when we finish a job confident that we've not only executed, but elevated the end product, and we know that everyone involved enjoyed the process. Our company was founded on the idea that life is about learning and teaching through every experience. We apply a strict discipline of work hard, play hard, and make great fucking work. We amplify awesome. We surround ourselves with the best and feed off of infectious innovation, ideas, collaboration, and building long-term friendships and partnerships. Contact us anytime for a meeting at our office, golf course, or on the chairlift.
Hi everyone, welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Castle, the Designer Track Chair and member of Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Before we get started, the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee acknowledges Indigenous people as the original owners of the land on which we reside, which is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide, ethnic cleansing, stolen land, forced removal, and forced occupation of their territory. And we honor those who have stewarded this land throughout generations and all other Indigenous tribes and nations who call Colorado home. Thank you for joining us in the 10th anniversary of Denver Startup Week. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, sexual orientation, or the combination of those identities. There's something for everyone at DSW, thanks to all of our community members who submitted their best content to make the week what it is. And thank you for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors for their support in helping us keep DSW free and accessible to all, especially our designer track sponsor, Battery 621, and the Public Works. With that, please enjoy the session and the entire week. Am I on? Yes. I think so. I hate watching that video, by the way. Hey everyone, Castle, Denver Startup Week Design Track. I think I'm on. Okay. Hey everyone, Castle, Denver Startup Week Design Track. Just want to welcome you to our 10th annual Denver Startup Week. I'm excited to be here with Ari Weissman. He's participated, I don't know if he can talk, but I think like 8 or 9 years. This has been a really popular session and is well attended every year. So there's definitely a need for it. And we appreciate Ari's participation. Make sure and share your experience, #Done Startup Week. And we've got a couple of cool events today, a lot of them in person if you're into that. We have a scent and design session at Denver Startup Week headquarters down at the pavilions. There's going to be champagne and dessert served as well. And we have a session at Woods Boss Brewing. The Cotton Blend T-shirt art show is back, I think for the 3rd time. All the proceeds go to DAVA, and you can have your T-shirt printed by really cool designers right on site. And then we have the About Last Night after party at the Block Distilling Co. Tonight's the last night for it, and you get a free drink with your wristband. So I think that's it. Thanks for attending. Ari, take it away.
Whoop. Awesome. Thanks, Castle. I appreciate the intro. I'm super excited to be here. Let me get us started. Okay. Welcome to Denver Startup Week. We're going to talk about UX and where to start. So this is I think my 7th or 8th year of participation. I'm really excited to be back. I'm really excited to be, I guess a member of the Denver tech community and the Denver startup community. And I've found these sessions both as an attendee and as a participant to be really helpful. So I'm glad to be part of it and really excited to speak with all of you who are listening today. We are going to talk about a very, very little bit about me. We're going to jump into what is UX, the UX design process, how to measure experience, systems and patterns, talk a bit about what's the point, and then hopefully I'll talk quick enough that we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you can stick some questions down into the Q&A at the bottom, I think there's a button there, and when we get to the end, I'll have a poke through there and see what you're asking. So a bit about me. So I'm reading this new book on anti-gravity. I can't put it down. Yeah, I know. You are all laughing your asses off right now, I'm sure. It's a shame I can't see you. But there are more of those dad jokes to come, I hope. My name is Ari Weissman. I have been UXing things for about 15 years. Over the course of that, I've been responsible for all things UX, from research analytics, design, project management, product strategy, education. I want to highlight that education bit. I'm a proud instructor at the General Assembly Bootcamp, and I've also done some side work. So I really love mentoring and helping educate around UX, which is why I'm really freaking excited to be talking about UX today and to be sharing with you my understanding of what UX is and how you can get started with what user experience and user experience design. So what is it? What is user experience? I mean, you've probably heard different words for it. There's UCD, UX, usability, service design, experience design, interaction design, customer experience, experience strategy, human factors. What does it all mean? This is a great quote that I like from the Design Council. The central premise of UCD, it's what the cool kids call user-centered design, is that the best design products and services result from understanding the needs of the people who will use them. right? It is the user in the user experience. It is user focused. It is listening and observing to understand the behaviors, needs, and goals. And I do want to, right, key in on the point around understanding. It's not regurgitating what people say. It's not give the people what they ask for. It's understanding what they need and designing something around that. And often there's a misconception, right? That it's listening to people and giving them what they ask for. And that is not what we're talking about. And I'm going to go into an example of that in a little bit. I also like this quote from Jesse James Garrett. The design of anything independent of medium or across device with human experience as an explicit outcome and human engagement as an explicit goal. So we often think about user experience as something to do with the UI, and it's not. It is independent of the channel. A great user experience with a bank is on the UI, on the website, on the phone, when you go into the branch, when you talk to them on the phone directly, all of the different channels, the emails they send, the support experience. A great experience is independent of the medium. It is all of the touch points that you have that need to work in synchrony to deliver a great user experience. Design is not just what it looks like. Design is how it works. And I think design is also how it feels. So let's talk about what that means. And I'm going to take you a bit on a history trip here. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when they first started talking about user experience, it wasn't user experience. They were talking about usability, because all that ways ago, just making it work was a success. Did it work? And did it work the same every time? Was it functional? And did it work the same every time? Was it reliable? That's great. And then slowly we started to evolve. The technology organizations, the design, the service design organizations started to think about, can the people who are using it actually use it? So moving from a command line interface to Windows, where you can double click on a folder that opens and you can see your files. It now becomes usable. And as we evolve, as technology evolves, as the discipline of user experience evolves, those things become table stakes. When we talk about user experience now, I don't want to talk about functional, reliable, or usable. Those should be a given. I want to talk about pleasurable. I want to talk about meaningful. What does meaningful mean for a user experience? So a good example is, I worked on a project for a big bank in Australia. They wanted to understand the user experience for redesigning the in-branch experience. And what we identified was that they have different cohorts, different personas who have a different perception of need for when they go into that branch. To be very generic about it, older folks versus younger folks. The older folks still like to have that interaction with the bank teller, where the younger folks really didn't want to have that interaction. They wanted to have more of a self-service model. And this was actually before a lot of the interactions were available on the mobile phone. So you could see what was meaningful for the service they wanted to provide was actually different based on the user. And that's really the tricky part, is there is not one meaningful experience for everyone. You need to identify your audience. You need to understand your audience. You need to understand the segmentation of your audience. And from that, build meaningful experiences that relate to the tasks they're trying to deliver. So what is meaningful? Meaningful is not the thing that you've built having a beautiful UI or having a satisfactory experience in the UI. It's about having a meaningful outcome for the thing that you're trying to allow your customer, your user to do. For iTunes, having a beautiful UI is not the point. It's allowing me to listen to music that I love. For Airbnb, it's not me booking a vacation. It's me taking that vacation and having a satisfactory vacation and having great memories from it. Right? For REI, it's me buying gear and being able to use it, not the website being great. So oftentimes when we think about a meaningful experience, it's not just this little bit that we build, but it's the end-to-end user outcomes that we need to be enabling. I love this point, and I don't think we talk about this enough. So we talk a lot about what UX is. I want to be really clear about what UX is not. UX is not just make it pretty. And I love this quote. Every time someone asks a designer to just make it look pretty, a baby kitten dies. Keep that in mind. UX is not about being an order taker. And I talked about this a couple of minutes ago. It's not about asking people what they want and building it. And this is my favorite example for those of you who are Simpsons fans. Homer reunited with his long lost brother Herb, and Herb gave Homer carte blanche to design a new car at Powell Motors, whatever he wanted. So all of the designers at at Powell Motors asked Homer, "What do you want?" And they built this. It has 2 bubble domes. It has optional restraints and muzzles for the kids. It has 3 horns, car horns that all play La Cucaracha. It has gigantic cup holders for your gallon-sized sodas, shag carpeting, and a metal bowler as a hood ornament, which is amazing, right? And of course, the car was $600,000, and Powell Motors had to shut down because it was a fiasco. Why? What happened? Pretty clearly, they asked what he wanted. What did Homer want? They didn't listen to what he needed. When people think about user experience, when they think about user research, there's some bristling about, we don't want to ask people what they want, right? There's a famous quote, Steve Jobs says, we don't ask people what they want, we give them what they need. But even then, right, the iPhone has gone through 10, 13 iterations because they've done observation, they've looked, they've researched, they've looked at analytics, and they've understood what are people using, what are they trying to achieve, and let's update, let's continue to evolve our service, our tools, our hardware, our software to deliver better user experiences based on what people are trying to achieve. So UX is not about focus groups. It's not about aspirations. It's not about what do you want. It's what do you do. It's not a task or a phase. You know, it's like aerospace design. You wouldn't just go say, hey, can you go aerospace something? That's ridiculous, right? Similarly, you can't go UX something. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. It's not expert design. There are many amazing designers who don't talk to users, who don't look at data to make data-driven decision-making. They are great designers, but what they're doing is not UX design. And it's not usability. Usability is the bottom of that pyramid. And we want to incorporate that. It is critical. But it's just table stakes now. UX is research-based, both generating an understanding of your users and evaluating your solutions. It is analytical and it's probing. It is a process. It's not one step. It is the entire product delivery process, service design and delivery process that you do. And it is cross-departmental. It is not owned by your one junior designer. It is owned by your CEO. It is owned by your finance team. It is owned by your product team, your development team, your marketing team, your customer success team. It is owned by the organization. UX is behaviors, needs, and goals. So when designing a product, I like is not as helpful as I do. I want is not as helpful as I need when making decisions. I wish is not as helpful as I need to accomplish. And the challenge for us as UX professionals is that often users can't vocalize, I do, or I need to accomplish. They're not effectively able to articulate what they do, what they need, what they are trying to achieve. So our objective as designers, as UX professionals, is to observe, to ask, to interpret, to validate. So we can take all of that data and come up with the answers to what do you do, what do you need, what do you accomplish. So with all of that in mind, I mean, right, that's not rocket science. That should hopefully make sense to everyone. So why are there still so many terrible experiences out there? All of that seems so easy. Talk to users, like understand what they really need, what are the behaviors they do, and build things around that and have an end-to-end experience. So we hear excuses. Research is too expensive. I don't have time. I need something now. I don't think there's a lot of value in design. We have a great product. It'll be fine. My favorite, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what people want. Or we're not ready yet. We're not there yet. There's a great talk given by Emily Danielson, which I'll link to later, which swats away a lot of those critiques, which swats away a lot of those excuses. And so I'm not going to go into those details, but I recommend if you're facing some of that, if you're hitting that wall, have a look at this presentation. So who owns the user experience? I talked a bit about it already. It is so much more than designing for a screen. The user experience is impacted by the decisions made across an organization, from your boardroom to your developer and the way they code for performance. Effective product design or service design is an organizational imperative. Hiring a great designer is not magically going to create a great product or service if there isn't great customer success or great support or great marketing or great financing. If you don't really have that end-to-end experience that matches the user outcome as opposed to the task they're achieving in your product. Your organization will need to invest and engage at the organizational level to deliver great user experiences. Hopefully that all makes sense. So let's talk about the design process. This is what it used to look like. A design decision is made. Does your boss like it? Does the client like it? No, okay, fix it. Do whatever they say. If yes, great, you're done. While it was simple, it was not an effective way of designing products. We have something a lot more sophisticated, and there are many different diagrams and Venn diagrams and charts, and I don't necessarily think this is the best or the worst, but I think it's a great example, so we'll go with it. Design is not just a checkbox, it is a process. The UK Design Council put together this double diamond concept for how to approach solving problems, right? And I say that, and I want you to focus on that. It is not about designing things, it is about solving problems. Design is a problem-solving tool. And so what they said is, it is easy to jump into features first. By structuring your conversations with hypotheses, you force your team to think through the context first, and especially the problem you're trying to solve. This contains the space for determining which features to work on. This focus makes any feature discussion more productive, more targeted, and ultimately more relevant to your customers. And so you can see what we have is a discover and define phase, that is the problem space. And then you have a develop and deliver, which is a solution space. And each of those, we call them a diamond because you start with a divergence where you spend some time going wide, and then you have a convergence where you spend some time making decisions and getting alignment. So let's dig into each one of these. The problem space. The problem space is where you build understanding. The goal is to identify a strategy and develop a plan. So why do we do discovery work? Two reasons. One, you don't arrive at great solutions if you don't understand the problem. And two, it is much easier to innovate on ideas than it is on defined solutions. In the problem space, we understand who is really the target audience and validate, are you sure that's actually them? What are the real user problems? You have assumptions, can you validate them? How do users solve their problems now? What are their behaviors? What are the biggest gaps or pain points? What are their needs? In this phase, if we want to segment problem space from solution space, we are choosing, are we designing the right thing? What is the right thing to design? Do we have the right problem? So we start with a divergence, and we diverge by doing desk research. We diverge by talking to our internal stakeholders, workshops, interviews, demonstrations. We diverge by talking to users, of course, observational research, interviews, surveys, contextual inquiry. We want to understand. From there, we have all of this knowledge. We have diverged to have this big mass of knowledge, and we then want to converge around alignment. As an organization, who is our target audience? What are their desired outcomes? What are our desired business outcomes? What are our risks, our assumptions? What is the method we are going to use to measure success? Really important. We understand what we are trying to do. How do we measure success? Too often we decide, how do we measure success at the end, after we've built it? Oh, it looks like this number is going up. Let's use that as our metric, which is a great way for getting your bonus, but not a great way for designing experiences. You should have a hypothesis for how to solve the problem. So your hypothesis statement could look like, we believe this business outcome will be achieved if these users, I don't know why I'm doing this, I don't know, brackets, successfully achieve this user outcome with this feature. So one more time, we believe this business outcome will be achieved if these users successfully achieve this outcome, this user outcome with this feature. So that gets us to, right, to an inflection point where we move from the problem space to the solution space. And it reminds me of this great proverb, vision without action is a daydream, right? And that's where we're at. But if we jump right into action without the vision, it's a nightmare. So let's talk about the next step of the action. We are now in the solution space. This is where we validate solutions to the problem we defined. The goal is to work through the different trade-offs, the prioritizations, the different options to understand what is the thing that we want to build. And while in the previous diamond, we wanted to understand, are we designing the right thing? In this phase, we are going to design the things right. In the solution space, we move into testing designs and solutions. We prototype several options. We test with end users and with business users, with customers. This is where we start thinking about usability, where we start thinking about interaction design. And so we develop solutions, we design, we think about information architecture and content strategy. We collaborate internally and externally, collaborative design studios, co-design, feedback workshops. We do additional research around how, now that we have a problem defined, how have other people in our space solved that problem? Is there a really well-defined strategy in the marketplace? Should we be using that? Because that's what people understand. And then we think about delivering, where we deliver an outcome. And when I say an outcome, it doesn't necessarily mean a final thing. It is a solution that we are going to continue to iterate on, right? Software is never done. You're always, the minute after you deliver, you're working on the next thing. I mean, my teams are already working on the next things before V1 is even delivered. So we are testing and iterating on the solutions that we've proposed. We're consolidating the design rationale. We're documenting the experience and the decisions. So we have alignment on the solution we think we're going to move forward with. And what happens then? We do it again. We push forward with V1 and then we diverge, trying to get an understanding of, back into the problem space, what impact has this solution had? What can we learn? What are the gaps? Have we actually solved the problem? Are we targeting the right audience? And we go through it again. So measuring and improving the UX, measuring and improving, right? And I want to talk about UX KPIs. Don't forget to measure. Too often we design great things and we don't measure, are we being impactful? We don't measure, are we being successful? You can't have a great experience unless you're actually measuring that it's being successful. So did you choose how to measure success before you began design? I hope you did. Did you benchmark the current state, if you have something existing, to know if you've improved it? Have you moved the needle? Is your measurement strategy based on user outcomes? User outcomes, and I want to dig into that a little more. So everyone probably has heard of a KPI, key performance indicator, a measurable value that demonstrates how effectively a company is achieving a key business objective, right? This should sound familiar. When I talk about user objectives for user experience, I mean something different. I mean something that is behavioral based. Behavior is critical for a UX KPI. Right? UX KPI should reflect the progress towards the user experience. So behavior, is the product or service working as expected? Are the customers being successful getting through the entire experience? Many orgs try to use non-behavioral metrics like customer satisfaction, NPS, but they don't answer the question of if a customer is successful. They answer how a customer feels at that moment. Without the behaviors, you can't tell what is happening in the experience. Attitudes change quickly. Behaviors change much more slowly. So instead of asking a person, are you successful, which sometimes you may have to do, having product analytics, right? Google Analytics, Mixpanel, whatever your analytics package is, that tells you without any bias, has a user gotten from this point to this point, is an unbiased, unvarnished account of their behavior. Have they achieved their goal? And obviously you want to maybe mix some things, right? You may look at Mixpanel and then also include the satisfaction to understand, are they happy with the path they've taken? But focus on behavior. You do want to ladder your UX, your user KPIs up to your business objectives. Absolutely. Certainly as a user experience leader, I need to talk to my product and my executive leadership so they understand why I'm focusing on these things and how it impacts the things that they care about. Money. So you want to ladder up your UX KPIs to business objectives like revenue, like sales, like efficiency within the organization. Business goals should be the driver for experience goals and certainly for defining the products that you want to put into the market and the decisions you make as part of that double diamond process. But if your business goals and your experience goals don't align, you probably should be having a conversation. It is, sorry, one second. So you want to make the measurement for UX KPIs easy to measure. You want it to be easy to do for a few reasons. One, if you make it easy, you're more likely to continue it. If you make it a really difficult thing, you're probably going to do it once maybe and then stop. So the easier it is, the more likely you will measure and the more frequently you will measure, which is great. And the more frequently you will talk about it and make it a part of your ongoing product conversations. And the more you talk about it and the more frequently you gather that data, the more likely you are to engage with others in your organization about that data, and then have discussions about what patterns are you seeing and what should you do next. It is very easy to set up this really complex, orchestrate this complex measurement strategy and then do it for a little bit and then leave it alone. The easier you make it, the simpler you make it, the more likely you are to stick with it and have good outcomes from it. You measure because you want to have outcomes, because you want to do something with that data. Make that easy to do. Cool. So what are examples of good UX KPIs? Shopping cart abandonment is a behavior. Someone is getting to a point and then leaving. Why? Time on task. You may want to determine that you understand that there are complaints that it's taking too long and you want to make that shorter. Reported performance, task success rate, search versus navigation, error rate, subscriptions, returning users, sharing, support requests. All of those are behavioral driven and help you understand how users are interacting with the service you're providing. Not UX KPIs. Page load time, very important. Very important, but not a user-driven KPI. Those are things that impact the user experience that you should fix, right? But it's not a user experience KPI. Time on page, geographic location, demographics, profit margin, customer acquisition cost. I'm not saying you don't want to track these things. I'm just saying they're different things. Okay, so those are things we want to track and really, if we want to understand the user experience, thinking about behavioral driven KPIs and tracking those alongside the business KPIs if you're in product leadership, or at least laddering up to the things that leadership cares about. So where does that put us? What's the point? I think there are 5 outcomes that we're trying to achieve across this process, across the double diamond, through the measurement strategy, that I think it's really important for you to keep in mind as you go. The first is, as a team, right? I'm talking about you and your product team or your service team, whether that's 2 people or 100 people. You should have a common understanding of people, customers, users, and their needs. You will run into challenges, you will run into problems throughout the process if you have different beliefs about who you are trying to serve and what those people are trying to achieve. If you are not aligned from the beginning, right, as part of the problem space on understanding who you are building for and what their outcomes are, you're going to have a struggle. 2, organizational alignment on a vision. Once you understand who you are trying to serve, who you are building something for and what they need, is your organization aligned on what part of that you're going to deliver on? My company makes tools for marketers. We are not going to build a tool that is going to serve every single marketing need. We have a vision that this is the playground, the sandbox that we want to play in. And so we are aligned on that. And we may get to a point where we say, look, we're actually really happy. There's a new opportunity over here. And then we are aligned on the vision that we are going to start building there. But if your organization thinks you're going to do all of this, but each of you have a different segment, you're going to run into problems. Being aligned around the vision as an outcome of the discovery process. A detailed definition of an experience that can be implemented. So as part of the beginning of the solution phase, you are going really broad and think about, we could build an SMS engine. We can build a branch for our bank and be, Amazon. We're not just going to be online. We're also going to build supermarkets and we're going to build stores. Are you all aligned around the experience that you're going to deliver, at least initially? Are you aligned around the future vision, but what you're going to do first? And can that be built? Right? Has engineering weighed in? Have your architects weighed in? Has your finance team weighed in? Has your executive team weighed in? Are you aligned around the thing that you're going to build to satisfy that vision? Can it be implemented? You've then, delivered a useful, usable, and desirable experience. Have you measured that you've done that thing? Is it usable? Is it, dare I say, meaningful? Do you assume that it is useful, usable, desirable? Or do you have measurements? Can you tell me, Can you show me the data? Whether it's qualitative or quantitative, can you show me the data to say that you've been successful? And lastly, have you created the infrastructure so that the experience can be measured for continuous improvement? And so not just measuring that, yes, you've been successful in delivering, but do you have data that will tell you what to do next? And that's part of my gripe with some of the satisfaction, in the NPS surveys. Yes, we know people are happy, which is critical. They're going to continue buying. We're probably going to get a better lifetime value from that particular customer. But if I get feedback that, oh, this individual gave us a 7, a 10, cool. I guess, that's great. Celebrate, pop the champagne. What do I do with it? How do I know what to do next? Do you have the infrastructure, the ongoing feedback mechanisms, both qualitative and quantitative, so that your product team, your UX team, your product organization has the information so that they are able to make decisions on what is the next problem we want to solve, We're going back into the first part of the double diamond. What do we do next? What are the problems we want to solve? Do we have the right information to do that? Do we have a vision for that? And then how can we start solutioning? One of in the classes that I teach, one of the key things that I talk about as we do user research and note taking is I call it the duh test. Basically, you ask, do you like this idea? And they say yes. Like, well, great, duh, but can you do anything with that information? And if you can't, you obviously don't say duh to the person you're talking to. If you can't, you say, well, tell me why, And you ask why, and you dig deeper and you understand. If you're interested, later today, actually, I think at 4 p.m. Mountain, I am going to be in another panel with an old colleague of mine talking about how to measure ideas. So we've talked about designing ideas, and later today at 4, we're going to be talking about how do you actually measure some of those ideas to validate that they're successful. So, all right, off my soapbox. I guess this whole hour is my soapbox, but I think these 5 things, if you can aim for them, and they are sequential, if you can aim for getting those things, you're going to be, these 5 ideas, these 5 principles, you're going to be in a good place. So what is the outcome for you? What's the point of all of this if I'm going to be very business focused, We are all very business focused. It's nice to think, oh, we're going to make really great things and make people happy, but it's hard to get money just to make people happy. We we're going to start a business because we need business outcomes. So the outcomes are, you're going to save money, you're going to reduce risk and create better products because you've gone through this process, because you've gone through all of that validation, because you've engaged your whole organization. You're going to save time. You're not going to build the wrong thing and then have to go back and build the right thing or try and fix the wrong thing. You're going to be more efficient by spending time earlier on, defining ideas, aligning around a vision, testing really low fidelity things, and then building a product, right? And that could be like a V1. I know we talk about an MVP, and it could be, a functional product that you build, but you've built it quickly. You've validated that's a thing that is great, right? And that you have data to suggest it is going to be successful. You have a measurement strategy in place to understand what to do next. And by going through this process, you're going to have better products and you're going to build better brand loyalty. You're going to have people who like the things you build because you've thought about what they're trying to achieve, and you're not helping them use your product, you're helping them get great outcomes. That's my 2 cents. And when I think about UX design, some of you may have come in and thought about, well, I'm going to learn how to draw boxes and put text on a page and what it should look like. That is another talk. This is about what is a great user experience. A great user experience is not about the boxes and lines and the text on the page. That is important, but a great user experience starts well before that. That's what I got. I have some tools that you might find useful. There's a list of UX tools that I don't curate, but I find amazing, whoever curates it. So you might want to get a quick screen grab of this, have a look at that. I also have a book list. There are a bunch of great books on there. Dive in. I know there are probably a bunch of other books that I have missed. If you're just getting started with UX, these are a great starting point. So that's all. I'm going to stop sharing. And so I can see oh wait, maybe I can pull up the chat here without stopping share. Sorry, my mouse disappeared. All right, I'm just gonna stop sharing. Let me pull up the chat. Are there any questions? Yes. So there's a question, can you get a copy of the deck? Yes, if you email me or, find me on LinkedIn, Ari Weissman, find me on LinkedIn and send me a message and I will send you a copy of the deck. Absolutely. Any other questions? Pop them in the chat. I can tell more jokes. If I don't hear any questions, I'm going to tell jokes. All right, here's one. Why are elevator jokes so classic? Because they work on so many levels. Yeah, right? Any questions? I have a question. Oh, I missed the Q&A. All right, thank you. I didn't see that there's a different button. You have said this, I had to step away for a second, but when it comes to alignment within the organization, what if the organization just wants to sell more X or Y or Z? So if the organizational goal is to sell more widgets, right, then I guess the focus is, and maybe I'm not fully understanding the question, but then the focus is, I'm not going to focus on the entire product suite. I'm going to look at product X and really understand the users and the behaviors, needs, and goals for product X. So my team can better understand the pain points, the gaps, and do the discovery work on product X, focus on potential solutions for product X, and go through that process, but much more narrowly in the product. If you want to sell more things, right, you have 2 strategies. One, you can invest in marketing, so there is more brand awareness to sell it, invest in the marketing and sales, or you can invest in the product. And that's really a leadership decision. Ideally, you want to demonstrate that by creating a great product, you don't have to invest as much on the business side of things. But that's a tough decision, and you need really good product leadership, or someone who at least has a really good command of the value of all of these stages and is able to articulate it in business words, right? Able to articulate financial value, why this task will translate to better business outcomes. I hope that answers the question, but please let me know. What is a good way to start on the UX research for a company who has not invested in it yet? Just start. And I know that sounds cheesy, but if you have access to customers, email them and say, hey, like if you have a direct access, email and say, hey, would you mind if we spent 15 minutes just chatting? If you have a good relationship with your customer success team, say, hey, would you mind if I sit in on some of your calls and maybe ask 1 or 2 questions? If you don't have a good relationship with your customer success team, make a good relationship with your customer success team. If you have a call center, say, hey, would you mind if I sit in on calls for a day or an hour or maybe 1 hour a week? If you are creating a service for a certain population, go to where they are. Go to the coffee shops they frequent. Go to the churches or the synagogues or the mosques, right? If it's a service for religious something. Go to the supermarket if it's about DoorDash, right? And how people cook dinners. Go to where the people are or find the opportunities that already exist. Use those channels, create some really great outcomes. Like look at all of this stuff I've learned, present it back and say, you know what, if we had invested a little bit in this, I would have been able to do this in a third of the time. I hope that answers the question. Let me go back to the chat. Can you post the links in the chat? So I'm not able to post the link to the thing in the chat at the moment. But yeah, the best way to get the links to, yeah, if you contact me, I'll put those links up to the documents again in a minute. But if you find me on LinkedIn, I will send those through. I will tell another joke. Did you hear about the 2 antennas that got married? The wedding was meh, but the reception was amazing. Yeah, okay. I was on the edge of my seat when you said that we need to make measuring an easy task, but how do we make it easy when we aren't selling anything? Oh, you just answered, thanks. Okay, great. I'm so good. I've answered the question before it was asked. Yeah, measurement, we always think it's quantitative data. And I think that the talk a little later today, the 4 o'clock talk goes into a little bit more about that. Find the opportunities. It is really hard to say, hey, I want to create a research program. And research often feels like a dirty word because it's expensive and it takes a lot of time. Whereas, hey, I want to sit in on a couple of these calls you guys are already doing. You're like, yeah, sure, right? And then it's up to you to make that useful. To say, look what we found. Here are trends. Here are things we didn't know. And actually, I want to point out that I talked to customer success and I listened in on support and I talked to all of these people at the supermarket. And here are the trends I'm seeing across all of these different things. Our value in doing that is making connections that other people didn't see, right? Are you able to do that? Love it, love it. What else? Any other questions? I don't see anything in the Q&A or in the notes. I'll tell one more joke. All right, let's see. Why did the coffee go to the police? It got mugged. I don't know. I'm cracking up here, people. I'm cracking up. All right, one more. Sure. What do you call a lazy doctor? Dr. Doolittle. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could have a full hour of just telling these jokes. Oh, we do have another question. How do you suggest a designer talk to management integrating this process into their company? Yeah, we get that question a lot. I think there's an old adage that if you want a promotion, start doing the job that you want. And I think, research and this design process is very much the same. It's hard to justify, hey, I want to spend all of this time for an organization or management that doesn't really understand, right? It's hard to justify, hey, I want to take all of this time. I want to do all of these things without any real clear outcomes. If you're able to do it, to just do it yourself. If you don't need permission to talk to customers, if you don't need permission to design a bunch of ideas and put them in front of internal stakeholders or external users and come back with feedback and say, hey, like I did this thing, I hope it was okay. And we learned all of this great stuff. I actually want to do it again, but to do it again, I'll just need these things, right? If you're able to show the really good outcomes, it becomes a much easier conversation. We avoided this huge, we designed this thing and I actually learned this isn't going to work. That would have taken us 6 months to build. Wow, look at how much money we just saved. Like, I want to make that part of our process. Here are the things I think we should do. Let's talk about that, right? That's how I would approach it. Just don't ask for permission, just do it. Do something small, find value in it, and then present that back and talk about how do you make it more? How do you make it bigger? How do you improve it? How do you make it a process, right? A process is like, I talk about that word a lot, but the idea of process is that it's something that's replicable. It's something that everyone in the organization knows what to expect. And it's something that you build because you know you're going to get good outcomes. You do it over and over and over because you know by doing it, you're going to be successful, hopefully, right? But if you have no process, you have all of this risk. Thank you, Squeaky Tiki, for that great question. Did I miss anything over here? Great presentation. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm pleased. I will tell you one more. All right. I'm going to put up those links again. Let me figure that out. And then I'm going to tell one more joke, and then I will leave you all to your afternoons. Okay. This should be sharing. Here are those links again. If you want to get a screen grab. And I will tell you my final joke. What did the cannibal get when he was late to the dinner party? The cold shoulder. Yeah. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. So I will leave you all to it. Thank you so much for attending. If you do have questions, please find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer what I can and to chat. For those of you dipping your toes in the water or diving farther into UX, good luck. Welcome to the brotherhood and the sisterhood and the non-defined hood, I guess. I think it's a great discipline and it's a wide open family. So I'm excited that you're all excited and welcome. Bye.